Hey everyone, my name's Kristen and welcome to my Cathedral Garden. If you are new here, I am so excited that you're here. I am a homeschooling mom who was formerly an elementary education teacher, and I have 4 kids. They are 10, 8, 6, and 4. And here on my channel, you're gonna kind of find a plethora of things, kind of like a lifestyle channel. There's going to be a lot of homeschooling because that's what a lot of our life is. But there's also other things like meals and days in the life and systems that work or don't, things like that. And today is going to be no different. I am going to be talking about a new subject today that's just close to my heart, and that is marriage. So stick around. Today's video is a collaboration with Anna from over at Just Making It Work. We have collaborated quite a few times before. She is my real life friend. I call her the mom that's just a little bit ahead of me. She has been married for 21 years and has 6 kiddos, and she homeschools, but there's also a variety of other things on her channel. She loves mamas. She has a heart for moms, and that's one of the reasons I fell in love with her to begin with. We talk quite often, and that's a little bit of how this collaboration came to be, because marriage is something we found we were both extremely passionate about. It's especially encouraging those who are in a Christian marriage. So if you are here from her channel, you already know how awesome her video was. Thank you for being here, by the way. And if you have not gone over and listened to her, make sure that you head on over there after you listen to mine. It will be linked in the description box below. So I am so excited to hear what she has to say. I have heard her notes on this and they are amazing. I cannot wait to watch the video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on marriage, the topic of marriage. I'm so pumped, you guys. Okay, so you might be thinking, why even talk about marriage to begin with? That's not really why I'm here, and that's okay if it's not. But this is my life, and these are the things that are important to me that I put on my channel, and so I would be remiss if I did not include something that I am so very passionate about, just in my own life, but also in talking to other women about. I want to be an encouragement to others in marriage. So that is one of the main reasons why we are doing this video today. I have notes all in front of me, so if you see me looking down, just know I'm looking at my notes. I want to be sure to use your time wisely. So I did not want to ramble very much. Before I go any further, I do want to add in this small disclaimer here, and that is I'm going to be talking about the nuclear Christian marriage, and I'm going to be talking about forgiveness and, you know, learning to live with each other, and it's okay to argue and things like that. Please know I am speaking about a typical Christian marriage. So if you are in a situation that is abusive in any way, form, or fashion, or that is not safe, please don't think that I am telling you to try these things to fix it. Please, please, please find a way to make yourself safe, okay? I am not speaking into that, or if you have lived through that story, and I don't want you to feel as if I am bringing shame upon you or saying you didn't try hard enough or anything like that whatsoever. So that is my disclaimer of when I am talking about these marriage things that I've found, and maybe some tips and things I believe that are helpful. It is for a typical marriage, not for an abusive situation. The common thing I wanted to be talking about today kind of took me by surprise as I was trying to get ready for this and studying, and it was the theme of surrender. Surrender in marriage. That's probably something that not a lot of people would be expecting. You know, we usually hear commitment, and you talk about surrender a little bit, but I have that as my overarching theme of what we're going to talk about today, and how that plays out throughout all the stages of married life. After having been married for 13 years, I can confidently say that there are seasons in marriage. I'm sure as many of you know, this is not brand new, groundbreaking, mind-blowing information, but it is something that kind of took me by surprise. And so we're going to talk about surrender in all these different aspects. And so the first one I wanted to talk about today was surrender before marriage. And that surrendering looks like a couple of different things. The main one being surrendering to the plan that the Lord has for your life. And you know what? Maybe that doesn't include marriage. And being okay with that. When I tried to make my love story happen on its own, and even with the ideals and values that I felt that I needed to walk into a marriage, whenever I tried to make it happen, it never worked. And it was really, really frustrating. And it took me a while to realize that I needed to surrender to the Lord's plan for my life and to pursue Him above a husband. And that had to look like, at least for me, being okay if marriage was never part of my story. And that is where I personally had to get. Just a reminder that your story doesn't have to look like someone else's. And if you will surrender and give God the pen, that's kind of what I felt like I was doing whenever I said, whatever you want from me, God, it's yours. I was handing over the pen for Him to write the story of my life willingly. And it has turned out so much better than had I written it myself, in all honesty. Another thing I wanted to talk about in this section of surrendering before you even get to the altar is surrendering the idea of perfection. Don't expect this perfect someone. Don't expect this person, this idea you have in your head, to come in and fix or complete or anything else in your life. That is the place for only the Lord. And then also the last thing I wanted to talk about was the surrender. It is to commitment. When you reach a place with another person that you decide you want to be married and you are both seeking the Lord and trying to figure out His will for your life, you are going to be making a vow, not just to another person, for better or for worse, but it's also before God. And so if you are able to, before you get married, know going into it that this is God's will for me, this is the person God has for me, then that is a huge blessing. I wrote down the note that seeking His will is trusting the Lord with that commitment, if that makes any sense. And I think I'm going to flesh that out as we get to the end. But it's making the choice to trust the Lord that He has brought this person into your life to do this life with. So that was surrendering before marriage. Now I want to move into surrendering once you're married. Obviously, once you're married, you're going to get a lot of practice in surrendering to another person, and that is a good thing. But I did want to bring up something that took me by surprise initially as I was a newlywed, and something I learned over time the hard way, and that was to surrender my expectations. Don't expect perfection in marriage. Don't be surprised by things. Don't be surprised when you argue. This was a hard one for me to overcome, because I was looking at my parents who have been married for years and years, and it was a wonderful Christian marriage. And I didn't really see them arguing, especially as an older kid, a teenager, and as a newlywed. And so my expectation going into marriage was that people really didn't argue, at least if you were healthy. If you had a healthy marriage, you didn't argue. So imagine my surprise when I do get married and there's disagreements. And I had to surrender the expectation that if you are arguing, that doesn't mean it's bad. And that's okay. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn. It took me quite a while to realize that my marriage does not and is not going to look like someone else's. For me, it was my parents that had been married 30 plus years. Of course my marriage isn't gonna look like theirs. I've only been married 6 months. They have had all of these issues, disagreements, things ironed out before I ever came along and got old enough to recognize what they were doing and that they were ironing all those things out. And so there does come a level of ease once you've been married for a certain amount of time. That doesn't mean that everything goes away, but it does mean that you're not trying to figure out how this will work for the rest of your life. So don't let that take you by surprise. Surrender your expectations of perfection. I want to camp out just for a second there on surrendering to perfection. That was something I really struggled with myself, that if I, as a good Christian girl, married a good Christian boy, then we would not really have a whole lot of issues, at least not the ones that everyone else dealt with. That couldn't be further from the truth. Just because you are committed Christians doesn't mean that hard times aren't coming, and doesn't mean that the joining together of two lives into one isn't hard. And that was a thing I really, really had to learn, and kind of took me by surprise, realizing that I really was a fallen human, and I married a fallen human, and I live in a fallen world. Our world isn't perfect. My marriage isn't perfect at all. And the expectation for it to be wasn't correct. The enemy is out there, you guys. He is trying to steal, kill, and destroy. And I feel like that is especially true of Christian homes. The homes that are committed to having warriors raised up for the kingdom and sending them out there to proclaim the gospel, or committed to having your marriage be a picture of Christ and the way that Christ loves the church, which is what we're called to do. And the devil, he knows it. The enemy knows it. And so he is going to do his very best to try and destroy that. He does not want the gospel proclaimed. And if he can do that by getting into a marriage and tweaking things and making us believe lies, and it won't be big, it'll be subtle, then he has a leg up. So we have to surrender the idea of perfection, and also remember that we need to take every thought captive, and that there is an enemy. There is an enemy that wants our marriages to fail. It is a true thing out there. And so what do we do when marriage doesn't look like what we thought? When it gets hard, what do we do? And that's where I'm going next, is how to surrender when it's hard, when it's not what we thought it would be. Everybody's marriage is different, so everybody's hard time looks different. But the reality is that it's coming, even if it's just as simple as you really have felt like you've just been missing each other a lot, like disagreeing more than you've been agreeing a lot, to other things that are more major. And guess what? People struggle there too. And that's an okay thing. Know that you're not alone if you have dealt with things in your marriage that were bigger ticket items. Other people are out there that have done the same thing, and the Lord is the Lord of them both, and His mercy and His grace and His love is enough to cover both. So in the hard times, how can we surrender? Once again, I'm going to put this disclaimer in here. This is for the atypical Christian marriage, not for someone who is suffering from abuse, okay? So when the hard times come, I have found that evaluating the voice in my head really, really helps. Taking every thought captive, as we are called to do, and figuring out what it is that is truth. Is what I'm hearing truth, or is it a lie? And you can use different scriptures to do that and learn to evaluate it there. Our scripture for this past year in our homeschool was Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is good, whatever is just, whatever is honorable, whatever is lovely, all of those things, that is a way that you could evaluate the voice inside your head. Is it good? Is what it's saying true? Is it truth? And knowing what truth is, because there are absolute truths in this world. Everyone has things that they need to work on in their own life, you and your spouse. So don't give the enemy a foothold here. Evaluate in your head, is this true? Knowing a shortcoming isn't a bad thing. Having a shortcoming is just part of life. And trying to work on it, you've got to be aware of it so you can work on it. That's not a bad thing. Or you're knowing your spouse has a shortcoming and knowing that they need to work on it. That's not a bad thing. Where it gets bad is where you start to believe the lies from the enemy that are subtle, that could come in ways that you don't even realize. And that's, a whisper of, well, he doesn't really love you, or you don't really love him, or he wouldn't do that if he really loved you, or are you sure you made the right decision? Are you sure you married the right person? Those kinds of things that get you to doubt the goodness of God and get you to doubt your commitment that you made beforehand. One of the main things that I think needs to be said today is don't think that your marriage is failing or that it's bad or anything like that. If you do have those thoughts, if they pop up in your head, don't think that you are not doing a good job, because it's what you do with those thoughts that determine if you fail or not. Taking those thoughts captive and fighting them, going to battle with the truth of God, with His Word, with Scripture, and also with what He revealed to you as part of His will when you were praying about it before you ever married. Don't doubt that. One of the best things I ever heard, and I know you've probably heard it too, is don't doubt in the dark what God has shown you in the light. If you were prayed up and you knew that this is a person that God had for you, this was totally God's will, then when those hard times come and you want to think, oh, this is too hard, I don't want to do it anymore, that's okay. That thought isn't bad. It doesn't mean that you are failing. But what you do with that thought of, I don't want to do it anymore, but I know that this is what I'm called to, that's where you determine failure or not. And it is having that commitment to the Lord that is going to see you through these hard times when they do come. Not if, but when. And sometimes forgiveness is really hard. It's really hard. Sometimes there may be times where you don't want to give it, at least not readily. But that is where I'm gonna now flesh out what I was talking about at the beginning, is your commitment at the beginning of your marriage that you made, not just to a person, but to the Lord. And that is going to be your foundation and your bedrock, and the thing that's not going to be shaken. That is going to be the thing that God has given you in the light, that when the darkness happens, you don't forget. And that is the commitment that you made to God of, I am going to trust you with my story. I am going to trust you when you say, this is who I've called you to marry. I am going to trust you that you told me to do that and I followed. And that is your plan for me. And you are not surprised by hardship. You're not surprised by arguments. You're not surprised by anything that has come our way. And the thing that we must remember and we must answer for ourselves in our commitment to our marriages in a Christian household, when both of you are committed to a marriage in the same way, and maybe you're just having a hard time, is the commitment that is there and that is going to be your foundation, is that the Lord has brought you together. And so you've got to figure it out. You've got to figure it out because you made the commitment, not just to each other, not to your kids, not to your ideals, not to your family dynamics, because all of those things aren't going to be enough possibly at some point. They may be enough for some things, but maybe not for other things, or maybe not enough for years of that happening, of just times when you're having babies or you're in school or life is stressful, jobs change, things like that. When it comes up, your bedrock and your foundation has to be the Lord before it's anything else. So that way you can give the forgiveness that's required, put in the work that's required, and surrender to that and to one another. There is so much more that I want to share and want to say. I love this topic of marriage, but we're just going to end the video right here. I hope that you've enjoyed it and that it has been helpful in some way or capacity. If you have experienced some of this, or if you have something that you think maybe I should add in or I've missed or would be helpful to someone else that you've learned being married, leave it in a comment below. I would love reading that, learning from you guys that have also been there, been in the trenches of marriage, or if you're getting ready to be married, is there something that you didn't even think about in here that took you by surprise? Let me know in the comments below. I love talking to y'all. Or you can find me over on Instagram at My Cathedral Garden. I really enjoy getting messages from you guys over there and talking about just all kinds of stuff and just getting to know you on a more personal level. If you liked what we did today, what I have talked about, please be sure to give this a thumbs up, and it lets me know if this is something y'all want to continue to see here on my channel every once in a while. And if you have not subscribed, please make sure to do so. It super duper helps channels that like mine that are just getting started out. And if you enjoy my content and what we have going on here, make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. Lastly, make sure you head on over to Anna's channel. Don't leave here without clicking that link to go to her channel and watch her video, because I know that it is just full of wisdom and wonderful content for us. All right, until next time, bye guys.